Welcome in, welcome back. Today we're going to be making this beautiful pink and purple sunset with some cactus silhouettes, starting out with a big brush, doesn't matter what size it is, grabbing a little bit of pink, putting it in the middle, and then going on top of that pink with some purple immediately. And you can see where it's a little bit darker at the top and then closer to that pink in the middle where it's mixing in as those two wet paints come together. And then just doing like little half circles or letter C's or little bubbles with the paint, mixing in a little bit of blue sometimes. This is going to start to give us some cloud coverage. So just the middle of the painting with some pink, and then going right above that with a little bit of purple, starting to get a little bit bubbly for some cloud coverage, and then mixing a little bit of blue into that purple occasionally, just so that it's not one solid color. Again, just using whatever large paintbrush you feel comfortable with. The shape of it doesn't matter, we're just covering a large area, so a bigger brush is great. And of course, jumping back into the pink to start bubbling out some more of those wonderful clouds. And then this here is actually a little bit of red paint to help get more tones and textures and everything in that pink section. And then of course jumping back to the pink to help get all that texture and not wiping the brush off in between, so letting that red and pink kind of mix together. And then as we go up here towards the top, it's going to blend a little bit and make darker colors sometimes. And then here you can see just a little bit of white grabbed with that same brush and just kind of fluffing out a little bit more of the texture with a lighter pink because it's mixing with that white there. And that's just using the wet paint that's still on the painting here. So grabbing that white, adding it to the pink, starting to bubble that through the clouds at the top. Remembering to add a little bit of water anytime that paint is getting hard to move around. And it's just really playing with the textures here. So jumping back and forth between any of these colors we've already got. Like here's a little bit more red. We can go back to our purple. We can go back to that blue. We can add a little bit more white to our pink. We can add our pink. Just anything that is a little bit different. If you're getting one solid color area, add something different in there to help it give you more texture. And then using those rounded strokes for all of that cloudy feel. And then here's some yellow and some white going in this bottom section and fluffing it out just like we did our other colors. Just bear in mind that if you touch that pink with your yellow and white, it's going to start to turn orange, and that's intentional here around these edges, especially to help those two sections blend it together. But if it's too orange, or if you don't like that, you can always wipe the brush off and get some fresh paint and then get back in there with that yellow and white without touching the pink. And then after that pink is dry, you can go right on the edge there so that it doesn't blend and make the orange. But here it's just yellow and white, fluffing out that same little half circles all over the place, jumping back and forth, adding in more white sometimes, adding in some more yellow other times, and really just taking the time to fluff out all of that cloud coverage. And of course we can bring this yellow and white up a little bit higher in the sky. It's focused lower because that's where all of the sun is going to hit there. There's going to be some mountains there at the bottom, so if you didn't quite get all the yellow filled in, that's also okay. But of course that sun is still going to reach up a little higher in the sky to some of these other clouds, so it's perfectly fine to add a little more yellow and white throughout. Or if you just really love this color, add a lot of it. And then here is just a little bit of plain white. Once again, that sunlight is just hitting some other areas in the sky to make it really light and reflective and beautiful. Add a little bit of white, it's just like a little highlight. And then you can see the more we go into there, we're putting plain white on, but then when we go in, kind of blends and mixes a little bit. And here is just a little bit of purple and white to help soften up all of the white we just put on there. This is going to be the basic color layout for our clouds. This isn't bad on its own. We could really leave this background this way, but it's also okay to make it a little bit more light and fun, which is what we're going to do with some white here in just a second. So with this being our background, we can sit here and add a little more purple around, which is what is going on right now. Jump into our white, add that highlight anywhere and everywhere all over that sky. It'll lighten up the colors that are already there. And then of course add some plain white by itself to make it really, really light. And then we can even jump back into the other colors we've already used. We can jump back to that darker purple, we can jump back to that pink, we can jump back to a little bit of blue, or a little bit of red with some of that pink, or some pink and white, or the yellow and white, or white and anything, because we're putting it on wet, so it'll mix and blend with all of those colors. And then just fluffing out little tiny dots and dabs and dashes in a circular or half circular motion to get it nice and fluffy like a real cloud would be. And then just adding those highlights on there, knowing that this is going to be the lower parts of clouds that have highlights because that's going to be what's closer to the sun. So if you want more clouds, just add more rows of highlights. If you want less clouds, just leave a little more room in between those. You are doing a great job. This is looking amazing. I'm very proud of you. This whole part of our painting is very repetitive. It's a whole lot of fluffy clouds just over and over and over again, and then jumping back to other colors if we lose some of it, and then jumping back to the white or jumping back to the purple. Here we're jumping back to some of that pink to get a little bit more of that in there. We can always mix a little bit of red with this if it needs to be a little bit darker. We can jump back to that yellow. You can even make some orange. We don't do that on here, but if you really like the orange color you got with your hot pink and that yellow or the white included in that, then you can make that little bit of a lighter orange color and put that in. And of course, maybe yours is already perfect and you just want to go ahead and add the next part of the painting. Skip ahead if you want to do that, but we're still fluffing out these beautiful clouds, getting that pink mixed in everywhere, going back to some of that white to get it more highlighted on those little fluffy clouds. This is going to mix with that paint, of course, and make a little bit of a lighter color. If we wanted to stay just white, we kind of have to put it on and leave it alone and not keep going, because if you keep going, that's where we get that mixing from. Of course, adding a little bit of water mixed in with that paint if it's needed, and just fluffing in a little bit of water, maybe getting a little bit more yellow here, a little bit more white, so we get all of that wonderful variation in that cloud coverage. Getting nice and fluffy all over these clouds. A few last little touches of some highlights with some white or some yellow or pink or purple or any of the colors we've done. We're going to jump in here and make us a mountain range down here at the bottom. This mountain range is a new color, so clean out that brush or grab a new one. We're going to be getting some blue and some purple and mixing those together. And then just starting out small, because we can always add, but we can't really take away, especially right on top of that yellow. It's going to stick there. And then so just really small, pressing out a couple of triangles for our mountains. These are not fancy mountains. It's just a silhouette, so just a couple of peaks will do, making them as tall or short, as pointy or as not so pointy, a little bit more obtuse maybe is the word instead of acute as far as those triangles go. Just pressing it out. This is purple and blue, and it can change. It doesn't have to stay solid blue or solid purple or even a solid mix. It can kind of vary between those two colors for your mountain range. And then here's the trick. You can see this is a little bit of a smaller brush just to get those nice little crisp details at the very top of the mountains. And of course, to get our color nice and vibrant, it's a second layer. So making sure that it wasn't super thick the first time, that way we can get all of this paint on there. So just layering it on as many times as it takes to get it nice and bright and vibrant and the color we want it to be. And then of course, mixing in some water with that paint, using the smaller squarish brush shape to really help get the crispy mountain edges of that on here detailed out exactly how we want them to be. Again, this is a smaller, squarer brush shape, so if you want those sharper lines, just flatten out both of the bigger sides when wiping off extra paint, and that will bring it to a nice little line so that you can use it a little bit more delicately than if it were just purely loaded up with a bunch of paint. And then moving on to our cactus. Now there are all kinds of cactus in the desert. This is just going to be the standard, I don't know the name of it, but it's the tall one that has arms. So just making a line for the base and then rounding the very top of it, and then just widening out that line until it is the size we want it to be. Of course, it's one of those things that it is black paint, so just keep in mind once it goes black, it doesn't go back. You got to start small and work your way out, rounding at the very top, widening out the sides, and then giving it a couple of arms. And we're basically making a letter U, where half of the U is the line we already made and the other half of the U is the little arm that we're adding. And you can add as many arms on the cactus as desired. Some of them have a lot. I don't know if you've ever actually been to the desert and seen the cactus, but there are arms on arms on arms, so you can never add too many. There's also ones that are just that middle stick. So of course, anywhere we want it, just putting a line for those bigger cactus. You can just leave the line to have it be just a simple straight up cactus with no arms. You can add 12 arms, you can add one like we have over here. And then with that black paint, this is a little bit of a rounded brush. If you're having trouble, try that shape. You can also mix in a bunch of water with that black paint, and a lot of the times it'll make it a little bit more smooth and make it flow more like an ink than like a paint, and that'll really help us get those very precise shapes without any extra fluff around the edges for those silhouettes. Again, for the arms, this is a letter U, like a lowercase letter U, where half of the U is the arm and the other half is that middle part that we first put on. Now, you might have nailed it here with the first couple of cacti put on your painting, and that is absolutely fantastic. You can also add 700 cactus. This is your desert. No one is going to tell you how many little cactus can grow in it. So if you want one, if you want two, if you want 82, those are all great options. Let's just add a couple more of these taller cactus silhouettes here. Maybe one that's just the middle part without any arms on it. Maybe it's still young cactus and hasn't quite grown to its full potential just yet, but it will later. One coming off of the side of the painting. Maybe the rest of it's out there in the world somewhere, and this is the one part we just captured in our picture. And of course giving it a little arm with that letter U shape, and then rounding off all the top of these little silhouette shapes. There are other smaller cactus shapes we can make here, maybe like a little, almost like a ball with a little flower on it. I don't know the names of any of these cactus types, so feel free to help me out with those, but this one's just like a little ball shape. We can do ones that are like little circles that are all little circles or oval shapes that are kind of leaning against each other. You just put a little oval shape, put another little oval shape, tilt it a little bit to one side, tilt it a little bit to another side, and you just keep adding little circle and oval shapes to get like this little other kind, and maybe another big one over here on this side. So we've got big cacti all over the place. Maybe it just has arms, maybe you put a little spot in the middle, who knows. Maybe we jump over here and add a couple more of those little ball shapes. This could be a little more elongated, not quite so circular on this one, making it a little bit taller, and then maybe giving it a friend that is a little bit shorter. And these are those little kind of cactus that grow flowers on them. Now you could take the time to get a really tiny paintbrush and add like all those teeny tiny little pokey things onto that cactus if you want. You won't be able to see that if I did that here. Up close is the only place you'll be able to see that, so feel free to throw a little flower on top of these shapes, because of course a flower is cute and blooming. Or add those little spikes. Maybe do another one that's these little oval shapes that are all leaning on each other. It's just like a little, you can go really small and just do like a little dot here or there for the circles, or little lines for the half oval shapes, and that's it. You have a beautiful, you've done a great job. Sunset. I'm very proud of you. Thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe for more paintings in the future, and I'll see you soon.